Tonight, parts of the island are still in the thick of a winter storm while crews on the Avalon continue the cleanup.
It's a nice break for many people, but for some people, a snow day means no pay.
Unfortunately, we have to give them the disappointing news that there is no legislation in the province that protects you when you lose a shift.
I'll tell you more later in the show.
They've done it with hospitals and long-term care homes. Now the provincial government is planning to partner with the private sector when it comes to major highway projects.
We think it's a creative way of getting best value for money, and something we want to introduce to the local market.
And that's ignited a controversy because unionized government crews will not be welcomed on these newly privatized roads.
I just want everybody to remember the passion that she had before it was taken from her.
Missing, then murdered. 10 years later, friends and family are honoring the legacy of Loretta Saunders.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin in Gander. It's day 2 of a major winter storm. It's still raging while residents scramble to keep up. The CBC's Troy Turner was out on the streets again today and brings us this story.
The snow is still falling, but residents of Gander are trying to dig out anyway. This town has had some bad storms over the decades, and for people here working to clean up, this ranks as one of the top.
I would rank it top 5. Yeah, since I've been here, and I've been here now almost 40 years in Gander, so I'd put it up there within top 5. I seen a storm one time that it just buried in front of our house, so that would be number 1.
Many people here considered the 2-day storm in February 1994 to be legendary. It rolled in 30 years ago to the day and dropped about 70 centimeters of snow, burying the community. It was so bad the town called a state of emergency. Today, people are just trying to keep on top of it.
It's tough going. Yeah, the snow's heavy, hard packed, so every now and then got to stop and beat snow down with my hands to get the snowblower to go through it. But eventually I'll get there. I've been out now maybe about 2 hours. There's never been what I'd call blizzard that you couldn't see across the street, but it didn't stop. It just kept coming down. It's as it is right now, and it won't stop.
Town crews are working around the clock.
Thankfully, we haven't had any significant issues with our equipment, and we've got a really good staff that stepped up to the plate and kind of jumped on board, and we got full crews out today, and everybody's putting their shoulder to the wheel and getting the job done.
The snow is expected to continue overnight and subside sometime in the morning.
So once the storm starts to taper off, we'll switch then into widening out the roads, and we'll start doing the hydrants and those types of things, and a little different preparation.
James Blackwood says the town will continue to battle this storm as it is about to enter day 3. In the meantime, he's asking residents to keep their vehicles off the streets so that town crews can clear the snow adequately. Troy Turner, CBC News, Gander.
Also, that's the situation in central. In eastern Newfoundland, people woke up to a thick blanket of heavy, wet snow. Schools, offices, and businesses are closed for a second day in a row. Here Now's Heather Gillis is live with more. So, Heather, what's it like outside now?
Well, Carolyn, it is snowing again. And this was kind of rainy or drizzly earlier today, and it made that heavy, wet snow even heavier and even wetter. And it's really heavy, especially for seniors and people out clearing their driveways and walkways. So that's a challenge. It's definitely a lift with your legs kind of day. But for people who are homeless or living rough in the city, it's also a challenge, and community groups today also scrambling to help them. The sound of snowblowers are reverberating through many residential streets in eastern Newfoundland today. For Peter Benson, clearing up after this storm is more of a marathon, not a sprint. Peter, tell me a little bit about how long it's taking you to clear some of the snow.
3 hours last night. Just got at it today, so like half an hour so far. But yeah, definitely a handful of hours at this. over the past couple days.
Lifting that snow feels more like concrete today. It's heavy and wet. While many people here are spending the day digging out under all of this snow, there are some people that don't have anywhere to weather the storm. That's where the Gathering Place steps in. The community group served 125 people for lunch today. A big turnout, considering public transit wasn't running and usually 250 turn up. They offer shelter, food, healthcare, all sorts of services in downtown St. John's. But with buses off the road, Executive Director Paul Davis says people have had a hard time getting there to have their basic needs met.
Which would be, food and warmth and comfort and so on. So trying to get people in, try to get them a hot meal, a cup of coffee, let them warm up. In the last 24 hours, we've handed out hats and mitts and coats and boots.
Meanwhile, the Salvation Army Center for Hope says its shelter was full. Their food bank has been closed for the last 2 days. They're opening tomorrow and expect a big rush.
We are not normally open for food bank on Fridays, and we will be doing that tomorrow morning. So people who couldn't get here for food bank or were expecting to can come here tomorrow morning, and we'll serve as many as we can. We'll be all hands on deck helping out tomorrow.
Now, Reed says in January alone, 1,339 people used that food bank that you just saw there, and she says 113 of them were brand new faces. So that's about 8% of users there, brand new to the organization. And the good news is for anyone looking to visit that food bank or to get any other services tomorrow, well, the weather is looking like it should taper off. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Heather Gillis in St. John's.
Well, road and sidewalk clearing, school closures, those are common concerns during the winter storm season, but there's one less obvious cost, and that's the financial toll a snow day takes on those without a salary and who can't work from home. Here Now's Mark Quinn has more.
Days can bring out the extremes. While some are hard at work, others are treated to a break from the regular work week. But snow day closures can also deal a financial blow. The Workers' Action Network of Newfoundland and Labrador says it often hears from workers who lose pay when storms hit.
We absolutely do.
The people who are most affected are low-wage earners, people who work in the hospitality industry or retail. And right now, it's up to employers whether they want to help them or not.
Unfortunately, we have to give them the disappointing news that there is no legislation in the province that protects you when you lose a shift due to storm closures.
Moriarty says people working in places that close, like restaurants and stores, are especially vulnerable. People in the fishery can be affected too. They stand to earn less money, but face the same monthly expenses.
I think that everybody loses out in some way if you don't have any protections, if you're not paid on salary, for example, if you don't have the ability to work from home. But most impacted are low-wage, precarious workers.
It's not an abstract idea for Moriarty. She's worked in jobs herself where a snow day meant no pay.
It has affected me in the past for sure. It can look like, for me it's looked like a few things, including having to, defer any phone bills that you have, maxing out your credit card just to afford groceries, because in most cases your landlord doesn't really care if you missed a couple of days of work, your rent is not going to change. So I think a lot of us are putting what funds we have aside to make sure that we pay our rent, and I especially think that that's the case right now with rising costs of rent.
The Workers' Action Network is calling on government to take steps to help people who lose pay on snow days. It wants to see the province put money aside to help businesses pay their employees.
Yes, and something like that could be laid out in the labour standards legislations by provincial government.
Moriarty says many other provinces also don't have legislation that protects wage earners on snow days. But she also says many of those provinces don't have as many snow days as Newfoundland and Labrador does. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Another messy day, as you've been seeing for the past couple of minutes. There's the reason. It's an area of low pressure sitting offshore. It's making its turn north now, and it's still going to affect the weather over the next couple of days. But the good news is things are generally going to improve across the island. That's not the case up across Labrador. In fact, you are looking at even more snow as we head through the next couple of days. The other thing to note with this system, and I'm sure you're feeling it if you're out there shoveling, is things are getting getting a lot more wet out there, and the reason for that is some warmer air moving in. And the temperatures today are where we're pretty much going to top off. Things are actually going to cool down over the next couple of days, but those winter storm warnings still in place, along with some blowing snow advisories for the Green Bay, White Bay area, and up across Labrador. We've got blowing snow advisories as well as winter storm warnings. Though winds are still howling out there, and that is leading to some reduced visibilities. Gander down to 0.6 kilometers. Things should improve by tomorrow. We'll talk all about that when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a new front has opened up in the battle over privatization. For the first time, the province is proposing to use the public-private partnership model, known as a P3, for a major highway project. And that's igniting a controversy because it will take work away from unionized government employees. Here now's Terry Roberts reports.
Two proposed new stretches of divided highway could chart a new path for road construction in this province. The government wants to twin 40 kilometers of the TCH from Whitburn to the Bellevue area on the Avalon Peninsula, and another 15-kilometer section of road from Grand Falls, Windsor to Bishops Falls. But these projects will be different from any other road construction happening here.
The plan right now is that we would do this as a P3 project.
And that's a first. Traditionally, the government hires private contractors to build roads and bridges, and after the work is done and payment is made, the government operates and maintains that infrastructure, including snow and ice control. But for these two projects, the private sector will design, build, operate, and maintain these sections of road for 30 years.
We think it's a creative way of getting best value for money.
John Abbott says the decision to use this approach to build public infrastructure was inspired by the success of previous P3 agreements to build hospitals and long-term care homes. Abbott also confirmed this week that government road crews will not maintain these new roads.
Obviously, there's a collective agreement in place that we will abide by that, but there's enough work to go around currently. We're short of staff right now at the best of times, and we recruit, so we don't see any job loss, those kinds of things.
In other words, these familiar pieces of snow clearing equipment, operated by government workers, represented by NAPE, will be replaced on those sections of highway by private contractors.
We're not prepared to give up another kilometer, let alone 55 kilometers.
NAPE is promising to fight this move, and this union boss is angry he found out about this plan through the media as a major storm was approaching.
We're not prepared to have that happen. These women and men that work in these machines have worked untold hours in this snowstorm, and they continue to do so. We've seen them put their lives in peril.
There's roughly 10,000 kilometers of provincial roads, with the Trans-Labrador Highway being a rare exception. These roads are maintained by government crews like this, about 800 NAPE members. Jerry Earle says this latest shift to privatization is unacceptable.
Well, I got news for this minister. He is in for a battle. And that battle will commence now because our members are pretty upset.
But this minister says to expect a greater reliance on the private sector in the future.
If it works the way I'm thinking it can, we will certainly consider that if we're going to be doing other twinning projects, which I expect we will do and need to do in other parts of the province.
The government plans to bring this major contract to the marketplace later this year, with construction scheduled to begin in 2025 and continue for about 3 years. Terry Roberts, CBC News, on the Cochrane Pond overpass outside St. John's.
3 crew members are safe tonight after being rescued off their stranded fishing boat near Fortune. The crew had to jump into the water to get to shore. Fire Chief Tony Snook explains how it all happened.
They had put a rope ladder over the bow of the vessel. So once we got everything in place, the first crew member came down. We had 2 members in the water. Obviously, when you're dealing with waves, rocks under your feet, slippery conditions, you're watching what you're doing with every step, just so that you don't become a casualty yourself. But like I said, they were tethered off, so they weren't going anywhere. The first guy came down. First member grabbed him and then passed him along because, like I say, is not that it was deep water, but the waves were pushing and driving the members in and out. So once we got him and then got him to shore, and he was good to go. We proceeded then with the second guy coming down the ladder until we had all 3 crew members off the vessel. They were very appreciative, very much so. The first guy that actually came ashore, it was his very first time in Newfoundland. So ironically, generally when they come off the gangplank, but this guy came down over the bow and came out of the water. So I guess that's the first for him. It's a good feeling when you can actually do something that comes in a positive result. Unfortunately, you don't always get those results, but this one was a positive one, so it was good.
Well, this week marks 10 years since the death of university student Loretta Saunders. The Inuk woman was writing a thesis on missing and murdered Indigenous women when she herself was killed in Halifax. A vigil was held earlier this week in Happy Valley Goose Bay to honor her memory, but also celebrate her successes. The CBC's Heidi Adder has that story.
That's Loretta Saunders' cousin, performing a drum dance in her memory. At just 26, Saunders had experienced her share of obstacles, had overcome addiction. She was studying criminology, was an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
I just want everybody to remember the passion that she had, the beautiful life that she had before it was taken from her, and kind of the legacy that she left behind.
A legacy cut short. Saunders struggled growing up in Happy Valley Goose Bay. She left high school and for a time lived on the streets in Montreal. Watching how Indigenous women were treated sparked a drive for change. Returning home, she was accepted to St. Mary's University in Halifax, where she was working on a thesis about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
She was going to make a change, and she done a pretty good job, but in her little short life.
Her mother says the family warned her to be careful, but says Loretta's nature was to help, to trust others. Saunders was killed after showing up to collect late rent payments from a couple subletting her Halifax apartment. She was murdered on February 13th, 2014. The search for Saunders captured the country's attention. Her death sparked national movements, with vigils in Halifax, Labrador, and Ottawa. She inspired the Am I Next campaign, highlighting the troubling statistics that Indigenous women are 4 times more likely to be murdered than any other woman in Canada. Her death amplified calls for a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, with her family addressing the commission. Her former university launched an Indigenous Affairs Advisory Council, created a scholarship in her memory, and her younger sibling DM, formerly known as Delilah, advocated for change until their early death in 2021, winning an international award for their work. This vigil marks 10 years since Loretta Saunders' death, but her cousin says she should never be forgotten.
Really, it is a celebration of Loretta, and to also raise awareness with her story. It's very important to me. It's important to my family. It's something that we have fought for before, so I think it's important to keep the story going.
Newman was just 9 when her cousin was killed, but is working to continue the family's advocacy. The words, "Am I next?" written on her drum.
It kind of represents more of the internal anger, more of the internal hurt, rather than, going out and yelling at everybody in the room. It's kind of a quiet protest, and I want my drum and my drumming to be a quiet protest.
Newman was inspired to go into mental health and addictions, joining others in her family that are continuing Saunders' hope of a safer future for Indigenous women and girls. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Happy Valley, Goose Bay.
Well, a fire chief in Wabush has pleaded guilty to impaired driving. Police arrested Marvin Butler in early December after an anonymous call about an erratic driver. According to an agreed statement of facts, Butler was swerving in his F-150 when officers pulled him over. It says prior to taking a breathalyzer, Butler said he would not pass. His blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. The chief was given a $1,500 fine and his license was was suspended for a year. Butler declined comment. He's currently on leave, and there's an interim fire chief in place. The head of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in Western Labrador, who's worked with Butler at drunk driving events, calls his crime disappointing and shocking.
We hold people in these positions, our fire departments, our police, our ground search and rescue, we hold these people to a higher standard. They're the people that protect our communities. They're the people that respond to impaired crashes and see the carnage it causes.
Newfoundland and Labrador's new area code drops on Saturday. The new 879 area code will be in addition to the beloved 709 code. It's in response to increasing demand for phone numbers in the province. Existing numbers will keep their 709 area code, and most people are already dialing 10 numbers to make local calls. Starting on Saturday, though, new numbers may get the 879 area code. Special numbers like 911 or 311 can still be dialed using only 3 digits. The change is happening more than 7 years after the CRTC said the province needed a second area code. Well, snowmobile racers are eagerly awaiting word from the Canes Quest Organizing Committee on whether or not the 2024 race will get the green light. The extreme endurance race around Labrador is set to start on March 3rd. The 3,500-kilometer race around the Big Land hit a snag last year due to a lack of snow and a lot of rain. Racers braved the soggy conditions before organizers canceled the race. That's why Canes Quest isn't following its typical scheduling of being held every 2 years. Organizers set today as the deadline to decide, but so far, no decision.
If we see an influx of nitazene into our province, we will see an increase in overdose deaths undoubtedly.
Buyer beware, a sudden death in St. Anthony sparks that warning from police about a drug that's 20 times more potent than fentanyl.
Well, that area of low pressure offshore still going to be a weather maker for some of us as we head through the weekend. I'll get into all the details coming up.
right, time for a look at the weather. It's still snowing in Central. We heard from Troy earlier. What are some of the amounts that we know so far?
Yeah, it's still snowing in a lot of places across the province. It's whether or not it's really accumulating at this point, because it is much more dense and wet for eastern areas of the province. And really through Gander, you're starting to see some of that dense snow as well. So snowfall totals since yesterday, quite significant and vary depending on where you are, but most of the metro areas seeing somewhere between 30 to 50 centimeters on the ground. Again, today you didn't really see a whole lot in the way of accumulation, a couple of centimeters, but lots of water definitely in there. And then for Gander, so far the latest observation I have is about 57 centimeters of snow. There is still more on the way for you, especially inland areas tonight, and especially towards the Bonavista North area. So top wind gusts so far quite significant as well. Bonavista 100-kilometer-per-hour winds. We've been seeing those winds gusting as high as 94 in Twillingate today, 81 in Gander. That is leading to definitely reduced visibilities out there. And we still have those winds gusting anywhere from 70 to as much as 90 kilometers per hour, topping out in the Twillingate area on that high side there. So the reason for that, again, is that area of low pressure. It is very large, affecting, in fact, most of the island as far as the wind is concerned, most of the province, rather, as far as the wind is concerned. Lab City, you're sitting this one out, actually an absolutely beautiful day for you, or it has been an absolutely beautiful day. A little cold, though, minus 14, with the wind chill feeling more like minus 20. But we are seeing those temperatures hovering around the 0-degree mark in Gander and St. John's. Same thing for Bonavista, a little cooler for the west coast. But this is about the warmest that it's going to be over the next couple of days. So if you have not cleared your snow, especially in St. John's, because there is still a bit more on the way through Central, you're definitely going to want to do that, because the cement is really going to turn into cement as we definitely freeze, I should say, as we head through the next couple of days. Taking a look at the live radar right now, we do have some periods of snow still working their way from north to south at this point, or at least from the northerly direction. Not showing up through Central, it's definitely there. And we are seeing some of those bands of snow towards the Green Bay White Bay area, which is why there is still a blowing snow advisory in place for you. So this will generally continue as we head through the night tonight, as will the winds, still gusting 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour. We may see even higher than that, though, in those exposed areas along the coast. And then up across Labrador as well. Coastal areas still seeing those strong winds as well as the snow. And that will continue tonight as well. Not quite so strong around the Happy Valley Goose Bay area, but you certainly are still seeing some snow, and it is very fluffy as well. So as far as your temperatures are concerned tonight, like I said, dropping down minus single digits for most of us. Up across Labrador, same thing towards the coast. But as you head towards Lab West, clear skies, minus 25 tonight. Your winds generally out of the north around 20 kilometers per hour. So as we head into tomorrow, finally going to see some relief of this snow. We will still see some snow lingering, however, for the northern peninsula as well as the west coast, and for coastal areas of Labrador, pushing into Happy Valley Goose Bay through the day as well. It's still going to be windy tomorrow. Those winds are going to stick around. We won't see relief from them until we get into the evening hours and into early Saturday morning for most of the island. But again, still going to be strong winds, winter storm conditions expected to continue for coastal areas of Labrador. As far as snowfall amounts are concerned, by the time we get into tomorrow morning, again, anywhere from about 10 to as much as 20 plus centimeters still likely to fall in the Bonavista North area, probably less than 5 to 10 across the Avalon. That's on the high end of that one. But as we head into tomorrow, we'll start to see some of that accumulation on the west coast. But yeah, areas could see over 100 centimeters of snow for parts of Labrador. Now, as far as your temperatures are concerned tomorrow, they will be below zero right across the board. And again, could even see some sun in the mix, which will be a nice relief from all of this snow. And then for Labrador, your temperatures are, like I said, on the cool side. So fluffy snow continuing, but Lab City, another beautiful day at minus 14. We'll talk about the long range forecast when I come back.
here at the Marine Institute where there's such a deep connection to the ocean ranger.
And because of where we are, we do put a exercise into the program, into the course, of what was experienced on a ranger during its last hours.
We're asking the question, where does the evidence and the artifacts from the disaster belong?
Death in St. Anthony has prompted police to sound the alarm about a very strong narcotic that's appeared in this province. The drug is called nitazene, and it can be 20 times more potent than fentanyl. Police believe a person who died in December purchased that drug online, thinking it was something else. Joining me now to talk about this is RCMP Corporal Jolene Garland. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
So just what is nitazene and what makes that drug so dangerous?
Nitazene is a synthetic opioid, so it's a man-made product, similar to fentanyl, codeine, heroin, those sorts of drugs. But with the difference of its potency, as you've mentioned, is approximately 20 times greater than that of fentanyl, to which we are already familiar is a very potent drug in of itself.
Is this the first nitazene-related death recorded in this province?
To my knowledge, it certainly is for the RCMP here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And in speaking with the RNC today, it looks like they may have had one such seizure in the past year, but I have not been informed of another death.
You know, there were dozens of deaths related to cocaine and fentanyl last year, and the chief medical examiner's office said those numbers are only going to grow. Can you talk about this drug in relation to things like fentanyl, which really raised the alarm as well? This is something that's even more potent than fentanyl.
Absolutely. If we see an influx of nitazene into our province, we will see an increase in overdose deaths undoubtedly. To say that the potency is an approximate 20 times greater than that of fentanyl should put that in a great perspective for people. This is a dangerous substance. Be very cautious and careful about what you're using, what you're buying. And again, if this comes into our province, we will see more overdose deaths in relation to this drug.
So this could potentially make a big problem even worse.
It certainly can. Our officers remain equipped with Narcan, which is still an effective tool to use with all opiates, including nitazene. However, with the potency of this drug, whether or not we'd be able to administer such a treatment in time, that remains to be seen. It's highly potent. It causes deep sedation and extremely lowered respiration rates, eventually leading to death.
How concerned are the police right now about this drug and whether it's going to start showing up more?
It's very concerning. It's very alarming. We have users out there who have certain tolerances to drugs that they normally use recreationally. This one was, we believe, marketed as morphine. So if you're a user of morphine, you develop that tolerance, you feel you're taking, an amount that your body can handle. You purchase this thinking it is morphine, and you take what you feel is a safe amount for you, which actually could end up, being a very lethal, deadly dose.
Yeah, let's talk about how this drug was actually acquired. The drug was purchased online, and you just mentioned that the buyer believed it was morphine. How common is it for people to purchase drugs off the internet?
It's certainly not uncommon. It is something that that does happen, and it is something that people need to be aware of, especially, given the fact that manufacturers are not concerned with the product that they're producing and the effects, the adverse or fatal effects that they could have on the user. It's not uncommon that a substance marketed online may very well be a completely different substance altogether, could be mixed with other substances as well, which increases the risk to the user.
In this overdose case, this was in St. Anthony. What does the online drug market mean for those living in more remote, rural parts of the province?
It certainly opens the door, one would suggest, for availability of drugs that may not otherwise be present within the community.
What would be your main message to people out there who, use drugs recreationally, may not always know what they're buying? What's your message to them?
If you don't know what the substance is, don't ingest it. It's that simple.
Corporal Jolene Garland, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm Paula Gale, host of the broadcast. We're here at the Marine Institute, where they continue to train people to work in the offshore industry. Here at the Marine Institute, where there's such a deep connection to the Ocean Ranger, we're asking the question, where does the evidence and the artifacts from the disaster belong?
This is one piece, and we have, I think, two others at least, of the control panel for the ballast control system in the Ocean Ranger.
You just watched that Land and Sea episode. What was running through your mind when you saw Noreen O'Neill and when you saw those artifacts housed in Ottawa for 4 decades?
I think I felt that I was pleased to see that they were kept. That after 40 years that they were preserved to such a point where we can now that we know what are the next steps. And we're able to make those decisions. The worst case scenario was that they ended up, being dispersed or scrapped or discarded or not understanding the importance of them. So initially I felt, this is good. They're being controlled. But then as the story went on and we started talking about that human connection and how, a lot of the families have never had that connection with the disaster, I think that, what starts running through your head is, how can we make it so? How can we bring this back to the province? And, you start thinking about what opportunities are out there. And I'm here at the Marine Institute now, and we have, these centers that are directly related and established because of the Ocean Ranger disaster. But there's other avenues as well, and there's other areas where we could look at where these types of displays or connection points are established, whether they be at the rooms or with the regulator or other areas. Marine Institute can play a part, of course, but I think that we're at the point now when we have the ability to really ask ourselves questions about next steps and how we really want to make that human connection real again for the survivors' families and for all the other people in the industry that this has affected so much over the years, but have never really put their, made that physical connection or that, that realization that this is still real. This is not just a Marine Institute thing or even an offshore industry thing. We look at those survivors and the families that have now grown almost into second and third generations. Like, this is a provincial item now. This is not just focused on the offshore. So there's no, we look at what's been done down the rooms with the regiment display and that permanent, collection, and the establishment of that for the province was instrumental in remembering and establishing that connection for everyone, not just the families of those that were lost. So I see the same type of collaborative effort within the province in order to find out the right solution for this.
This inquiry into this was released in 1984. This is the 40th anniversary. Recommendations from that, how did that inform the Marine Institute? How did that inform what the Marine Institute did then and continues to do today?
The Marine Institute saw itself as the medium for such training and certification of offshore mariners and workers, especially in the areas of ballast control. And it also led to the establishment of the Offshore Safety and Survival Center, which was built earlier in the 80s to respond to the basic offshore safety training, water safety training, helicopter, just a lot of the things that you would think looking at the industry now would have been in place, but were very basic, much more than what we had to establish. So the Marine Institute from the disaster onward saw itself as as the leader when it came to establishing what development and training to be, and what how to further enhance that as time went on, technology changed and the industry changed. I think now, again, with the opportunity that we see as a province, with knowing how well preserved some of this evidence is from the inquiry, that it gives us now the ability to ask those questions about where do we want to display or exhibit such artifacts for the benefit of the province.
And we'll have more from the rooms on this story tomorrow evening on Here and Now. In the meantime, it released a statement saying the materials collected from the Ocean Ranger are in excellent hands in Ottawa. It says the rooms has been in early discussions about how to best collaborate to make this collection accessible to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and to all Canadians.
My name is Charlie White. I have an outdoor YouTube channel based out of Colebrook, Newfoundland, right next to Stephenville in the Bay St. George area. Chase the Seasons is something that we do every single year. As Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, it's getting out and doing whatever activity is available for us at that time. So what we're going to be doing together here over the next couple of months is we're going to be doing some rabbit snaring. We're going to be doing some ice fishing for trout and smelt. And we're going to be doing some snowmobiling, some winter camping. It all depends on what Mother Nature is going to throw at us.
There's a showdown happening between NAPE and the Transportation Department over plans to twin two stretches of the Trans-Canada Highway. One stretch is between Whitburn and Bellevue, the other from Grand Falls-Windsor to Bishops Falls. Government wants a public-private partnership to build and maintain the stretches of highway, meaning private snowplows would be keeping them clear. And that's not going over well with NAPE.
What we will do once we're further along in our planning, we'll be sitting down with NAPE to work through that. Obviously, there's a collective agreement in place that we will abide by that, but there's enough work to go around currently. We're short of staff right now at the best of times, and we recruit. So we don't see any job loss, those kinds of things. It's just a matter of making sure we abide by the collective agreement when that'd be seen as contracting out. And we will do that. We're doing that in other areas, and that's we're able to work those arrangements with NAPE.
So is it possible we could see a private contractor clearing snow from those new sections of highways?
Yes, and we do that in other parts of the province right now. So when we need to, so that, and as I said, there's enough work to go around, and so we're very confident we can accomplish both. That NAPE can be satisfied, we'll be satisfied.
We're saying privatization creep is being happened in this province. We are going to bring an halt to it. It has to stop. We've seen it in a number of areas where they are gradually eroding public services. They make it look bad. This is a play they do right across the country. First of all, they'll make the service look bad. They won't replace the equipment. And then they say we need somebody else to do the work. Well, somebody else may need to do the minister's work because he and his former administration has fallen down on the job in ensuring that we have the proper equipment and proper human resources to keep Newfoundland and Labradorians safe.
There's 10,000 kilometers of public roads in this province, and right now you're being asked to give up about 55 kilometers of that new road. Is that too much to swallow?
55 kilometers, that's this time round. What's next? So is that all they're planning on doing? We know how these things work. We've seen it happen in the rest of the country. I can tell you here in this province, we're not prepared to give up another kilometer, let alone 55 kilometers.
So will we see more trucks like this parked and more workers laid off? Is that what you're expecting?
We're not prepared to have that happen. These women and men that work in these machines have worked untold hours in this snowstorm, and they continue to do so. We've seen them put their lives in peril. We've seen them off the roads in the middle of storms. We are not going to sit back and let this minister, this government, fear his team get off the hook this time. I can tell you that.
An archival special from Labrador West, Labrador City's first moose hunt. Watch In Search of Moose, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
All right, time for a look at the long-range forecast now. So we get to look ahead to the weekend.
We are looking ahead to the weekend. Yeah. Yes, we are a little quiet to start, which will be nice for some of us anyway. Labrador, not so much. Let's take a look at what's going on. You still get to see the effects of this area of low pressure right through Friday evening and into Saturday. Well, most of the island will be seeing some clearing skies. Now, it does look like some onshore flurries will develop along the west coast of the island and the northern peninsula. You will still see some effects from this as well. It shouldn't accumulate to too much, but you're still going to see it. Definitely going to see that accumulation, though, through central coastal areas of Labrador and then back through Happy Valley Goose Bay. Again, some amounts may exceed 100 centimeters, especially in those higher elevations. And even around Happy Valley Goose Bay, you're seeing pretty fluffy snow, so that should accumulate quite quickly through the weekend as well. So yeah, it's going to spin offshore. We will see those winds eventually much lighter through Saturday, which will be nice as well. And also some periods of sun through parts of central and eastern areas of the island. So we'll be able to get out and enjoy some of that snow that has fallen or continue the cleanup in some cases, especially with some of those snowfall amounts potentially exceeding 70 to as much, maybe even 80 centimeters of snow by the time that's all said and done through areas of central. Temperatures are going to stay cold. Your daytime highs topping out between -2 and -5. So if you have not cleaned up the slushy mess that's happening in eastern areas of the province, it's going to freeze. But up across Labrador, your temperatures will be into the minus single digits towards the coast and about -16 in Lab City through the day. As we get into Saturday evening and then eventually into Sunday, we're watching another area of low pressure. This one could bring some snow again, another round of snow, which could be in excess of 10 centimeters through the overnight and into Saturday morning. The good news is it moves through quickly. Do we see some mixing? Potentially for the eastern portion of the island again, but we'll keep an eye on that one. But again, like I said, it moves through fairly quickly, not nearly as windy, but we will still see some wind gusts. It just won't be as long lasting as what we're seeing now. And our temperatures are going to stay again below zero, -2 to about -5 or 7. And then pretty similar forecast up across Labrador as far as those temperatures are concerned to your Saturday. Your long range forecast, below zero. Overnight lows dipping potentially into the minus double digits as we get into next week. And the flurries will generally continue Monday, Tuesday. Like I said, Sunday with that potential for snow early in the day. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at a very similar forecast as far as those temperatures are concerned. Actually a little bit below, or a little cooler, I should say. About -8 on Tuesday. Same thing for Tuesday, yes, same thing for western Newfoundland. And again, more gray skies and some flurry potential for you. Onshore flurries. Eastern Labrador, snow right through Monday, Tuesday, maybe some sunshine. And some flurries possible for Western Labrador as well on Sunday and Monday. Tuesday, chilly and sunny. Speaking of Lab West, take a look at this beautiful shot. I just love this one. Blue bird sky there. Well, not bluebird sky, but blue sky. And,
well, it's kind of the color of
it. It is, that's true. Larry captured this great shot, thanked me for keeping them out of the storm. You're very welcome, so you can get to enjoy the beautiful weather. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, we were talking last night about how much sunshine the
that's right.
Western portion of Labrador has been getting. So it looks like getting some snow, though.
Yep,
yeah,
it's coming.
All right, your turn. All right, well, that's it for us on this Thursday. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.